day at Ukraine Crisis Media Center, and the topic of the first press briefing is the role of the civil control in the process of defense sector reforming. Andriy Zagorodniuk, director of the project of reforms at the Ministry of Defense, also Oleksiy Gridin, head of the Volunteer Council at the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Alyona Verbytska, advisor to the General Staff of the Armed Forces, and Mikhail Lopatin, coordinator of the medical projects at the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. Dear colleagues, welcome on stage.
Добрий день, шановні присутні.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andriy Zagorodniuk. I'm head of the Project Office of Reforms at the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, and I would like to say several words, and then I will give the word to my colleagues that will go into more detail. The topic of the briefing is to speak about the role of the civil control and informing civil society about civil control in the process of defense reforms and what should be the approach and why this issue is important. And we should build this civil control because the main problem we face and revealed in the course of our work, there is lack of information about civil control, and this is the road we should follow. If we want to go to NATO and we have strategic management, and that all NATO countries have civil control over defense sector. That's why we should go along this way. But people do not know about this concept, and we should start the work to draw attention of the public to this issue, and today we start this process. Last week on Friday, a strategic defense bulletin was signed, and this document envisages the idea of civil control. Of course, we have the law on this, but this law should be amended, and this law do not carry out those functions that it should. And strategic bulletin, it is based on NATO principles, and I will mention three components we should pay attention to. The first, parliamentary control and its enforcement, effective work of Parliament on control of defense sector, also Ministry of Defense, and civil control, control from civil society. So you know that now there are discussions that there will be some changes in the ministry, and this is only a part of the problem. The idea is that the Ministry of Defense should be civilian, so the majority of the staff of the ministry, they should be civilians, not former servicemen, but people who do not have military education or who didn't undergo military training. Of course, they should know the military sphere, but they should be civilians. And in most countries, there are both servicemen and the military and civilians, but minister, deputy ministers, they should be civilians. Of course, it will take years, but we should start today. Without exceptions, NATO countries have civilian ministries of defense. So it's not a question for us whether to do it. We should. And what are the main concerns? Firstly, we should disseminate information, and on the 15th of June, we will hold a conference together with the Supreme Council on Civilian Control. We will also brief on this and inform the representatives of the ministry, the civil society, the public, and also there will be a site on civilian control of the Ministry of Defense and the military sphere, and also there will be some civilian experts in the military. These will be volunteers, civilian experts for some donor programs, but the main task is to bring specialists, civilians to the Ministry of Defense. So this is our strategic goal we work on. And now I give floor to the representative of Volunteer Council of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. He is going to tell us about civilian control, that is the part of this issue, and then I will answer questions. Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I would like to tell you about the Council of Volunteers at the Ministry of Defense and about the activity of the Council of Volunteers. So this is an advisory body at the Ministry of Defense that is aimed to coordinate the activities of volunteers and the armed forces, the ministry. The time passed, we got some experience for about 1.5 years. We understand that we should systemize our activity, and the main is to start civilian control, civil control, control by the public. The Council of Volunteers understand that that should be professional civil control that should develop, and for this we should make some efforts. We also deliver some courses and we train people, and also we provide some training for volunteers and for those who work with the ministry and who want to work in the security sector of this country. As of today, we conducted the courses in the Ministry of Defense together with the University of Defense, and they will continue. And now we initiated the training of volunteers and civilians abroad at foreign universities, and that idea got the support of our foreign partners and the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, in order that volunteers and civilians who got education abroad came here and work in the security sector, and including the Ministry of Defense. Also, the projects we carry out connected with the civil control. This is our daily work, and where there is also work on the commission. There was a vetting commission, and the Council of Volunteers took part in creation of this commission, and also we had enough representatives on this commission, and we had influence on the decisions, and the opinion is that the role of this commission was positive. There were some issues, and the results of the work, they will be informed to the ministry, and then we will additionally provide our assessment. And one more thing I wanted to mention is the work on the Committee of Reforms. Practically on all the groups, the volunteers are present. They are working in these groups, and we have the function to provide alternative positions, so both positive and negative aspects of the work of the Committee of Reforms and the work in the working group, and to provide this information. And now we work on the communication strategy, and we will inform the public on this. I would like to give the floor to the next speaker, Alyona Verbytska, advisor to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
I am Alyona Verbytska. I'm an advisor to the head of the General Staff of Ukraine, and my activities in all my actions, I represent the official position of the head of General Staff, General Spizhenko. Our activities aimed at the solution of the most acute issues which confront the servicemen. And doing this, we very proactively cooperate with the Council of Volunteers, with public at large, who quite often go to the east. They know the state of affairs, and this is more tactical cooperation. More strategic aspect of our work is continuous communication and feedback with civil society, with the broad public, and communication between the military forces of Ukraine, general staff, and with the population. Unfortunately, for a long period of time, the armed forces were separated from society, and many citizens of Ukraine do not know what the army is, and what's going on in the army, where to call, where to apply in case of any trouble. And by the way, the appeal, which is addressed properly, could be responded properly, tackled properly, and in general, the problem could be resolved only in result such correct application, while in case of incorrect application, it may simply disappear, and nobody would know about negative things. I would like to use this opportunity to thank to the volunteers who bear the main burden, and I believe that it's very important for the ministry to cooperate with volunteers to distinguish properly between the functions and the responsibilities. Those volunteers which have undergone this training, which received skills abroad, they will be able to establish very efficient communication between armed forces and population, and to ensure that this dialogue is not a monologue. Those people who have been dealing with these aspects of the armed forces issues for the last 2 years, they know the most weak links, they know the most weak spots in our activities, and they could become the agents of reform, of so-called process of making enforcement block more civilian styled. And I would like to thank to all our partners who allow us to work together so fruitfully. Thank you, Alyona. I'm pleased to invite Mikhailo Lopatin. I was represented as a coordinator of medical projects. That's not fully true. On the framework of the project, of the reform project office, I was included to the membership of the general staff working group dealing with with reforming. Probably you have understood, you have heard that we have two types of supervision. One of them, this will be civilian control and public control. There is a big difference between them. The volunteers, they represent public control, while civilian control means that the armed forces would carry out that functions which are said by the civil society. Presidential supervision is also of primarily importance because the president is authorized to be the general commander. And only under such a supervision it is possible to ensure that the General Staff of the Ministry of Defense work for the joint purposes, joint goals. General Staff is responsible for actual deployment of troops, for operations, for combat decisions, while the Ministry of Defense deals more with strategic issues and supplies. I believe that the dialogue, establishing the dialogue, the efficient communication between the two of these agencies and between civil society, civilian population will be very, very difficult. Today we have heard the word medicine. I would like to develop more on this issue. Medicine is a good example how civil society and armed forces could cooperate. We have civil society supervision, we have volunteer supervision, we have the Ministry of Defense supervision, and the Ministries of Health supervision. So how to coordinate all those supervising functions? Today, we cannot say whether the reforming in military medicine is sufficient. The development program is not known. That's why we do not have the benchmark against which to compare the progress. Today, we have a very important document which is passed, and it sets all the necessary benchmarks. The document was developed with participation of the NATO experts. I would like to thank to Mariana Bezzubova, to Anton Ilyin, and a group of experts who contributed much to it. There was a huge number of volunteers who were involved in this work, and in result of this cooperation, the document has all necessary benchmarks, dates, deadlines, description of activities that should be carried out. And today, all the energy of society is willing to reform the military, the tactical medicine, and by the way, volunteers took very proactive position. And now all this huge potential should be streamlined to assistance to the Ministry of Defense that will show how all those actions will be implemented and the deadlines will be fulfilled. And by the way, for civil society, we offer a set of projects. This is about military medicine and not only military medicine. So now it's time to ask questions if you have any. Since you do not have any questions, thank you very much. See you next time.
Шановні колеги, наступна подія рівно о 12:00.
The next event will be in 5